Okay, so I've done a lot of stuff in my life that I'm proud of, but it's come to my realization, thanks to you guys, that there's a couple things I'm failing in, and that is driving a race car fast.
Keep 2 hands on wheel at all times.
And my TIG welding abilities.
Pardon me, Mr. Perfect! I guess I forgot that you never ever make a mistake!
But, as one of my heroes once said, I'm a man, but I can change if I have to, I guess. Okay, we want to thank Lincoln Electric for helping us out with this video. What we're gonna do is use the Square Wave TIG 200 for this, and it's kind of an entry-level tigging machine, which is where I'm starting out with. I don't have any tigging experience whatsoever, and no instructional how-tos given to me at all. So I know how to weld, both stick and MIG, and I know how to braze, but I'm very green when it comes to tigging. Along with the welder, we've asked Randy from Chrome to Envy to give us a hand and actually go over the machine and kind of start from 101, how to get into tigging.
My name's Randy. I own a business called Chrome to Envy Customs. I have a YouTube channel that I don't really do videos on, but I'm getting there. I've been fabricating for 14 years now. Aluminum stuff, food grade stainless stuff, normal, mild fabrication, anything and everything. Like Rich was saying, this is a perfect inexpensive machine. Entry level, it'll do everything you need it to do right out of the box other than high production stuff. Perfect for the at-home hobbyist. An inverter machine, it's a lot smaller. The old transformer machines, I have a Square Wave 250 at my shop, and it's almost the size of this toolbox. It's gigantic. These inverter machines, they run a lot more efficient.
So you were saying this is exactly like your machine, but it's got a pulse option.
Yeah, so this has got a pulse option. My machine is probably like 10 years older than this.
Okay, so completely green. What I want to know is what not to do. What is going to prevent me from doing a nice weld? No matter if everything was perfect, I'm still ending up with a crappy weld. What are some of the things that would cause it?
Okay, there's a lot of things. TIG welding is very difficult for beginners because it gets a little overwhelming and everybody's super jacked on making weld porn right off the hop. Yeah. and it's just not gonna happen. Should
I start with steel or aluminum?
It's better to start with steel.
Okay.
Aluminum, well, it's a little more expensive consumable wise than everything else, but steel is more of a practical application you can spread across the board because almost the same rules with steel apply to stainless.
Okay.
So you can kind of...
So it's like learning to stick before you learn to MIG, because if you can do stick, you can MIG. You can, but not the other way around.
Yeah,
Kinda.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong just based off settings, amperage-wise, and material-wise. These coupons I cleaned up as best as possible, and they worked nicely. But this coupon, we cleaned it up, and no matter what, the steel's pitted. Basically, you're not gonna get a good weld no matter what.
Okay, if it's got rust.
If it's got rust on it.
Then stop and...
There's a lot of material prep that goes into it, as well as cleaning after the material prep. So there's one thing is grinding your material, that way it's nice and shiny and you get a good bead and get good penetration. A lot of guys, they use wipes and they like wipe down everything.
Wow.
That way everything is very clean, it's sterile. The aerospace stuff, they're on like a whole nother level. But
and those poor guys can't post any of their pictures.
They're the best and they can't do anything. You can't see nothing.
All right, so we've got our materials. Now what comes in our kit? We got a pedal, we got this wand, torch, and the machine itself. So what do they do?
Yeah, okay, so your pedal, it's like a gas pedal, right? More power, more gooder. You set your amperage, that way when your pedal's fully maxed out on like pedal to the metal, that's what your maximum amperage is gonna run. It won't run any more, it won't run any less. It'll run less if you ramp it back. It's better to set your amperage on close to the material that you have rather than just max out your machine and try and feather it in between. You'll never hit that sweet spot. The Lincoln actually has a chart right on top of it. From what you can see, it's pretty well bang on. Now the torch, there's a wide variety of torches. We got a number 7 cup on here. I think the smallest cup I have is like a 3 that I've ever seen. And they go all the way up to like 24. Like they get gigantic. For the most part, all you need is like a number 7, a number 8. It all depends on how much tungsten you want to stick out of the nozzle. So the diameter of your nozzle is typically how much stick out you can have. So a number 7 is 3/8 of an inch, half an inch. So you'll be able to stick out about a half inch. You can go under, it's fine, it's not gonna hurt anything. Try not to go too much over.
Okay.
Because you'll start losing gas pressure, gas coverage. Because we have number 7 on there, your CFM of what you're gonna be pumping out of the regulator will be twice that. So we have a 7, you can go 14 CFM, 15, 16, but if you start ramping up anything past that, you're just throwing bills out the window. And argon's not necessarily super cheap.
How about the tip on the tungsten? What's important about that?
So you have to make sure that your tungsten's nice and ground. It's got a good point to it. While you're grinding it, you also don't want to make it red hot. It's bad molecularly in there.
Yeah, kind of like sharpening the blade on a knife. If you go red hot,
If you go red hot,
brittle and shit.
it'll get brittle, right? When you're welding stainless steel or anything like that, it's always got to be a nice point. You can change the angle of the tungsten point and you'll get a different flow out of the electrode. So we've got our settings, we got our setup, we got a nice ground spot. Basically what you're gonna do is, I like to pre-flow before start welding.
Okay.
Because what ends up happening is the time it takes the solenoid to open from there to there,
Yep.
you've already gotten inclusion because of lack of gas flow.
Okay.
Right?
So to start the flow, you just tap the pedal?
Yeah, just give it a little tap, you know, hold your torch out here and give it a tap.
Okay.
And then you'll hear the gas come through, unless you got like some serious ear protection on. Try and listen to the burn. And I mean, frankly, it's a lot of feel with TIG, speed and depth. You know, you don't want to have your tungsten way out here and trying to weld anything, as well as your angle. You don't want to be trying to weld this way and be pulling your tungsten like that.
Okay.
You'll get lack of gas coverage and
Okay.
it'll just be spits and sparks.
All right. So this is kind of your goodie bag.
Yes.
Well, so we're just gonna touch on this briefly because there's too much going on
There's a
here.
lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. So first off, what's the difference between long and a short? Why would you want? They're both number 7. Now I'm confused.
They're both number 7. Really the difference is getting in tight spots.
Oh, okay.
That's basically it. I got some stubbies. That way you don't have to have a full-size tungsten sticking out of your torch.
Okay.
So you just pull off the back cap and one of these will screw on there.
Okay.
So that way you can take this from being 8 inches long to 4.
Okay.
Right? That's one of my fancy CK Pyrex cups that is broken.
This is how much?
It's like $40 Canadian.
Okay. So like $12 American.
So yeah, like $10.
But still, don't buy these until you get it.
Yeah, don't
Okay.
bother. Especially like they're really nice. The nozzles there,
see.
you can't see anything. This, you're in a weird spot. You can see right through the cup.
Okay.
They're really nice.
I think this is. I think we have something like this in our chandelier in the house.
Yeah, probably. You know, and then this is your standard gas nozzle, and this is your more fancy gas lens. Just helps spread out the gas a little bit further, and it kind of saves your gas a little bit.
Okay.
Much more even coverage, which
Okay.
is fantastic.
Now, is tungsten?
So there is a ton of different tungstens. There's gold, black, silver, purple, green. Yeah, there's a lot. And kind of each and every one has their place. But for the most part, I'm pretty sure this kit came with purple, which is totally fine to just do anything you want with.
Okay.
It's very good for aluminum. It's a very stable arc, which is very nice. Typically green band was always the aluminum. There is tons and tons, and you can dig so deep in the different tungstens. Use what you got,
And then go from there.
Now we're talking rods. So there's 3 different types of rods we got here. Aluminum in the middle, regular mild steel on the outside, and stainless on the far side. Now you can see a difference color-wise based on the stainless has got a little bit more of a flatter finish to it. It's not as shiny as the aluminum. The aluminum has marked on it what it is. This is 4043 aluminum. Now there's also different thicknesses of rods, hence the two pieces of aluminum. There's one that's a 16th and one that's 332. That'll affect how big of a puddle you're gonna make. We're gonna be welding with 332 ER70S. Rich has got this stuff laying around, so this is gonna work perfect for what we're gonna use.
So can you TIG without filler rod?
So you can. There's a lot of back and forth, not necessarily industry-wise, but just people-wise, internet-wise.
Okay.
With fusion. Fusion is a standard practice that a lot of welders use. If your pieces have a good enough fit up, specifically stainless, you do a lot of fusion in stainless.
Okay.
Mild steel, not so much. If it's a nice tight fit up and you got a nice back purge in there. So back purging, basically, you've got your exhaust. So you've got a couple pieces of exhaust. You got a nice pie cut here.
Yep.
Typically what you want to do is you want to cap the two ends and then feed argon into that tube.
Oh, okay.
Because what's gonna happen is you're gonna weld on the outside here and it's gonna start blowing through on the inside. And as it's penetrating in, you have no gas coverage on the inside of that tube.
Okay.
So typically what you want to do is they make fancy things for it and everything like that. You can use like electrical tape and a hose. Like
That's a lot of argon gone.
it's a lot of argon, yeah. So you have to set up like a dual regulator on your tank.
Okay.
And it's a lot more of a fancy setup, but as far as exhausts go, and especially doing expensive exhaust work,
Yep.
most tube welding, that's what you want to do.
Okay.
You want to make sure you got a nice good coverage on the inside.
When you're MIGging, you have no idea what the inside looks like.
What the
So you
inside
got big bubbles in that everywhere. So TIGging kind of eliminates that.
It eliminates that as long as you're not too heavy on the amperage.
Okay. All right. So when we're using a rod now, we're gonna forget about fusion welding. I just wanted to ask about that. Guy down the road does the aluminum welding for me.
Yeah.
And he always wraps it around
Wraps it over his shoulder.
his shoulder and then his hand.
Yeah.
Because he said if you're fighting the wand, you agree?
Yeah. Everybody's got their own technique to
Okay.
it. That's definitely a good way because you end up pulling on the cord. And
Yeah.
your
You also
hand
get
starts
tired, right?
wandering.
If you're holding the hose up the whole time, you're
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
gonna be way too big. So, okay, so with MIG welding, I've been told both ways to either drag or push. Dragging keeps the gas along the weld longer.
It depends on what wire you're burning.
Okay.
So if you're burning flux core, you drag.
Okay.
And because you don't push, you end up getting inclusions inside.
Okay.
Metal core, you push. You
Okay.
can drag it, but it's been proven that it's not as good of a
So metal
penetration.
core, you're talking with CO2 MIG.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you got a gas, you want to push your MIG.
You want to push. Well, even flux core, you'll have a carbon dioxide
Okay.
mix. That's more industrial.
Okay.
like, big stuff.
And when I welded the aluminum with my spool gun, I dragged it, and people said don't do that, and I think it got black, right?
Yeah.
So you definitely want to push.
You want to
with it.
push.
Okay.
With this, you're gonna want to push
I'm gonna push
Yeah.
on an angle 45.
on an angle, roughly 45. Yeah.
Okay.
You want to kind of good viewing, and really like a lot of guys they'll stick their cup right on the seam there.
Okay.
That way you got a nice solid guide,
Okay.
and that'll help you with your tungsten control because you're dealing with such a smaller arc. Yeah,
Not that smooth.
there's a sweet spot where you're not pressing too hard against, and
Okay.
and then it takes a little bit of fine tuning and just doing it right.
Okay. 45, 16th away. I'm dragging. What angle do I put this at? Does it matter?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. A lot of people lay it flat. It's all kind of personal preference. That
Okay.
way. Whatever feels the smoothest, because you're feeding at the same time, you're kind of doing the opposite
Right.
each way.
Right.
And there's certain different speeds with both of them.
Okay.
People bend up rods. That way they can kind of just lay the filler rod in their hand, and it'll just kind of like they can use their thumb to kind of
okay.
like to move it along. If you get good enough, you can kind of do the finger shuffle and
Okay. So electricity's coming out of the tungsten.
yeah,
And it's connecting with with the 2 pieces of steel.
with the 2 pieces of steel.
But is it gonna have a favorite as to which one it's gonna go to, or
It'll be based on your tungsten angle.
so just angling my tungsten one way or another will depict as to which
will
one
depict
the heat?
on where your heat's gonna go.
Okay, so if I point too much in here, I'm gonna get all the heat in here, and I'm not gonna penetrate this.
Yeah, and you'll burn this edge away. Yeah.
Okay, so that's why the tungsten has to be pointed 45 degree between the two.
Between the two.
Okay.
Usually, like, this material is the same thickness, but it'll also depend on the thickness size. If you got like a thicker plate on the bottom, then you don't want to feed the heat into the thin piece.
Right. So this is 3/16 thick. How you just go to the chart and see?
So the chart says right here, 130 to 160 amps.
Okay.
I've got it set at a $140,
Okay.
which is pretty well usually where I'd have it about to kind of fine tune.
Oh, that's ugly. So what did I do wrong?
Okay, so like here you started developing like a good puddle.
Yep.
And that'd be like a good base.
Okay.
But yeah, it was fast. And
Yeah.
just a little high.
I can see all the heat
Yeah, you
is
can
on the
see-
top one.
Yeah.
So I
you can
should
see
have.
a lot of radiate heat on the top there. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, if you bring it down a little bit more,
Can I go over it again? Will it fix that?
you can go over that again. We can run a bead right over top of that.
Okay.
If you start a little before it, that way you'll kind of burn onto it.
Okay.
Now this will also work as a bit of the filler rod since there's already material there. So that'll be a little different too.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can see it was starting to build up that puddle there, right?
Yeah, so I was going too fast, but I could, instead of concentrating about going fast and whatever, I could actually look at my puddle.
You can
and I
see
could
the puddle,
see the puddle
and
on
you
both
can kind of
sides.
see it
That was
develop.
much better.
Yeah, and that's much better. Yeah.
Yeah, but now
Yeah, now we gotta sharpen your tungsten.
So rather than focusing on my rod, I was focusing more on the puddle, and you can see I got much better there at the beginning, and then I got too excited because I'm like, I'm doing it, and then I forgot to move, and then there it went. So we'll, maybe I'll flip it over and try to start from the other end.
And let your post flow. Look at you, you're a welder.
Yeah, look at that. Nice.
You got a pretty good little weld here for somebody who's never done this before. It's good.
It's a weld.
It's definitely it's holding stuff together.
Okay.
You can see the penetration based on the heat into the steel, so it's definitely penetrating. If you do want to get a bigger weld in there, slow down a little bit. I would build it up a little bit more, and now that's just a little more filler rod and a little more, really it's just seat time. And also a big thing with the whole welding and TIG welding and open root welding with pipes and everything like that is walking the cup, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen on the internet, and it's super fun to do. And it's super practical.
Yeah, well, I noticed that. Like, dragging my cup, I found that I was kind of skipping across.
Yeah.
And I'm focusing on the skipping and trying to smooth. So I lifted my cup on this one, and like right here, I was still skipping. The first little bit here, I was skipping, and that's where I lifted my cup.
Lifted
I'm like,
your
well,
cup.
this is going much nicer. It's not coming up and touching the tungsten,
Yeah.
but I can see the puddle, and that's one less thing I have to concentrate about is the skipping.
It is personal preference, and frankly, it's a better way to learn it with your hand up and the cup not necessarily resting on it. That way you're not relying on the material.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep practicing doing some lat welds, whatever steel I've got around. I'm gonna hop back in here and keep practicing. Is there a big difference for butt welding two together?
Yeah.
If I wanted to do something like that?
Yeah, so with material this thick, it's different than thinner material, obviously. With the thinner material, you can just weld right on it.
Okay.
You know, when you start getting up into this stuff and the bigger stuff, usually what you want to do is you want to bevel the edge.
Okay.
Both sides. That way you got a nice little V in there. That way you can get a nice root pass in. Nothing too crazy, but just a good root pass. That'll keep you underneath your profile or your plate, and then you're gonna want to go over top with a nice cap on top.
Just normal grinding stone, flapper wheel, wire wheel.
Normal grinding stone is totally good. Flap disc is good. I mean, if you want to get crazy and pull out some 80 grit, like
Okay.
sandpaper, go nuts.
Because I've heard if you do it with aluminum and you've used the grinder stone on steel, you
contaminate.
You contaminate.
So,
but not worried about steel.
Steel is good.
Steel.
Steel.
Okay.
But stainless is also that rule also follows with stainless.
Okay.
You have to have like, this is stainless stuff, this is steel stuff, this is aluminum stuff.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of preparing that way to make sure that you're not contaminating your material. I mean, the steel, it's rough and it'll pretty well take everything. The stainless, you'll contaminate it and you'll go from not rusting to rusting because you've got metal particles. You got mild steel particles all over it.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Guys, definitely comment down below if you want to see another series. This is kind of a tryout. We kind of want to get, basically, I've never done this before and I want to keep going from here. If you guys want to see more videos like this, comment down below. If you want me to take a step back and go back to stick and MIG, we can do that. For now, TIGging is kind of the hierarchy of...
Yeah, really like, when people see fancy welds online or anything like that, it's always TIG welding.
Okay.
They're, you know, the pipe guys, they've got their own little cult. And it takes serious skill to do that stuff. But the TIGging that's really, it's your most versatile aspect of welding.
Is it stronger than MIG or stick?
It is stronger based on how good the welds are. The TIG weld should be stronger.
Okay.
Yes. There's so much more control and so much more precise. And cleaner
and slower. A MIG is like you get one shot, like
yeah,
and that's it. But here you got more control.
There's more control, and
okay.
and it'll you know, if somebody's gonna weld up, you know, we welded up a roll cage on the Audi, and it took us an afternoon.
Yep.
If we were doing that with the TIG, we'd be all day. You know, it's definitely a lot more of a tedious process.
All right, perfect. I'm gonna keep practicing, and then maybe we'll see you again in another couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Check out Randy on Instagram, Chrome to Envy, and his YouTube channel if you're ever gonna upload again.
Yeah, maybe. One day.
It is a lot of work, but I want to thank you for coming out. Definitely comment down below if you want to see any more of these videos, these types of videos. Basically, want to start from the bottom up because that's where I am, and if you're in the same spot, let's figure this out together. So, here we go.